Welcome into the college football every game on the board podcast. Bowl season is upon us. We are hitting the first 12 bowl games here up through South Alabama, Western Kentucky on Wednesday. And we're starting here at the top of the card, Miami of Ohio versus UAB, with our first and only handicapper for the top of the bowl card. That's Matt Josephs from sportsmemo.com. Follow him on Twitter at MidMajorMatt. Matt, welcome in. How you feeling?
Feeling good, Drew. I'm a huge fan of the bowls. I don't think there's enough of them. I think we should find a way to get every team into a bowl game. I love them. The handicaps are always quite complicated, to say the least. So hopefully people won't get mad, Drew. I'm not going to necessarily give a pick on every game, but we're going to give them as much information as possible, so that way they can at least be armed with the same amount of info we have when we take a look at these games.
Absolutely, guys. It's in the name of the show. Every game on the board. We will hit all the bowl games. And this is the first 12. We'll bring in other handicappers for the rest of them. But great person to get some knowledge on a lot of these games. Right up his alley is Matt Joseph. So top of the card here, we're going down in rotation order. If you go to wagertalk.com, the live odds screen college football page, those little numbers next to the team name, we're going down in numerical order. Starting off, Matt, with one of my favorite bowl games. It really is. And it's early, 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. 201, 202, Miami of Ohio, and UAB. Thompson-Robinson Stadium. That's in the Bahamas. So the only bowl game not in the United States of America is this one. And we get UAB minus 11-point favorites, 45 being the total. I say it's my favorite bowl game. One, because it's the first bowl game, but also because it's in the Bahamas. I think that would be really cool. And it's kind of like it almost looks like a high school football stadium. I don't know if you remember in years past, but they got that track around the stadium. It's like little stands. It looks really cool. It's usually windy too this time of year in the Caribbean. Keep that in mind. We do have a low total, but the MAC, Miami of Ohio, representing them here. Miami of Ohio at UAB. What are you thinking?
So I'm still mad at last year's game. Last year was Middle Tennessee and Toledo. I had the team total under for Middle Tennessee because they were starting like their 7-string quarterback and Toledo couldn't shut them down. So I was very annoyed that I started out my bowl season with a loss last year. So as you mentioned, there's a bunch of things that you have to consider when it comes to the bowl games. Obviously, weather is one of the factors. And of course, we've got the games that are close, so we can look more at the weather. And of course, head coaching changes, who's opting out, who's injured, things like that. And already we've got a couple of complicating factors for this first one, Drew. Scattered showers and 11-mile-an-hour winds potential for the Bahamas. 11 miles an hour is not really that much, but the showers certainly are a factor here, Drew. And when you take a look at both teams, you start with Miami, Ohio. They have their starting guard, Caleb Schaefer. He is in the transfer portal, so he will not be there. The other thing to consider here is Brett Gabbert. Brett Gabbert's the starting quarterback. Brett Gabbert went into the transfer portal, decided to come back here, but there's no official word, Drew, as to whether or not it's him or Avion Smith as the starting quarterback. Now, I posted it on Twitter, and somebody DM'd me, and they're like, notice how many games that Brett Gabbert has played this year, and it's 4. And remember, if you want to redshirt a guy, I believe you can't play more than 4, so maybe he was hinting at the fact that maybe Avion Smith is going to be the starting quarterback for that game. And I've seen Avion Smith. He is more of a running quarterback than Brett Gabbert. He presents more of that, but he's definitely a worse passer here. And if there's wind, that could be a little bit of an issue for Miami, Ohio. On the other side, you've got UAB. And remember, they made the big controversial hire of Trent Dilfer as their new head football coach, and the players hated it. They absolutely hated it. They wanted Brian Vincent to be their coach. Well, he's coaching this bowl game, so that's going to give them the extra motivation they need, I feel like. It doesn't look like there's any transfer portal stuff, any injury situations here. So this is a really tough game, Drew, because if Gabbert plays, it changes the handicap as opposed to Avion Smith. The offense kind of changes a little bit for Miami, Ohio. Slight lean to the Red Hawks here, but I'd love to get some sort of indication tomorrow morning as to who's going to be the starting quarterback for this game.
Good stuff. Matt Joseph's breaking it down. First game in the books, as we'll head back to the United States of America for the second bowl game. 203-204, Troy versus UTSA. Orlando, Florida, the Cure Bowl here. I believe the old Citrus Bowl. It's not at UCF Stadium. 3 o'clock Eastern time. Troy, UTSA. We are seeing a flip favorite here. UTSA was the favorite. Now it's Troy, -1, -1.5, depending where you're shopping. 55.5 being the total here, Matt.
We've also seen the team totals flip a little bit around that key number of 28 and a half. I really like Troy all season. I've been a big Troy fan. I had a ticket on Troy to win the Sun Belt at 10-1. They obviously did so. We got lucky that Coastal Carolina had a less than 100% Grayson McCall. Didn't matter. They might have been the best team in the conference. No weather issues in this game, it looks like, down in Orlando, so that's fantastic. Troy has won 4 straight bowl games, and sometimes you want to look at a team's pedigree. Now, I'm not a big trends guy when it comes to history, but you kind of want to look at coaches and things like that. Now, granted, look, Troy's got a new head coach, so the past victories in the bowl games don't matter, but a lot of the players were in a lot of those games. Troy's defense is ridiculous. They held Western Kentucky to 27 points. They held Ole Miss to 28 points. Now, granted, those were early on in the season, but we're seeing a Troy roster that is pretty much intact. Injuries, transfer portal stuff, they're pretty much nothing to worry about. Whereas on the UTSA side, best news they got is Frank Harris is coming back, the quarterback who's been really good. But Brendan Brady got hurt in the Conference USA Championship game. DeCorian Clark, one of their best wide receivers, has been out. Traylon Smith, Gavin Sharp, Rashad Wisdom. There's some injuries. A couple guys went in the transfer portal. Kind of tells me they're interested in this game, but not as much. UTSA also 0-3 in bowl games here. I think I'm going to get involved with Troy at some respect, whether it's Troy as the favorite, Troy money line, or maybe I'll look to just isolate that defense and kind of take the UTSA team total under here. I really believe in Troy. The one worry is their offense isn't great, but their defense is legit, and I believe that'll be the best unit on the field tomorrow.
Yeah, good game. I believe both teams winning 10 straight games coming into it, and obviously just a -1 point favorite, competitively priced game. So 2 games on Friday. We got a bunch on Saturday, I believe 5 of them, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific, 2:05, 2:06. Louisville and Cincinnati in Boston, Massachusetts, in Fenway Park. So the Fenway Bowl here, -2 point favorites. That's Louisville as they're taking on Cincinnati here, 40 being the total. So Fenway Park, probably going to be cold, baseball stadium, historic, kind of a cool atmosphere, but I don't know. What are we thinking? Louisville, Cincinnati.
So this game is arguably the most fascinating of them all. First off, the beginning of the game could be played in rain and snow with wind involved as well. It's going to kind of taper away. The chances kind of reduce as the day goes along. Let's start out with the Louisville side. Louisville loses Scott Satterfield. Scott Satterfield is going to Cincinnati. Scott Satterfield also, the co-defensive coordinators are gone. The offensive coordinator went to Western Michigan for Louisville. Then you have opting out. Malik Cunningham's not in this game. The running back Tion Evans is not in this game. Their best corner, Keytrey Clark, is not in this game. Tyler Hudson, who had over 1,000 yards receiving, they all opted out. Then you've got 4 different players in the transfer portal for Louisville, including one of their guards, Luke Kandra, who started 8 games so far this season. So we're going to see Brock Doman start for them. He has 3 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and is not a running threat, which is certainly what Malik Cunningham is. That's the Louisville side of things. Cincinnati, between opt-outs and transfers, 5 of their top 6 pass catchers are gone. Also gone. First team all-conference corner Jaquan Shepard, and their kicker is gone. All this means that Evan Prater is going to be starting at quarterback. He is more of a rushing threat. Doesn't have the greatest numbers, but at least has experience. Their interim coach is Kerry Coombs, and their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator all gone. So both of these teams have been stripped to the heavens of everything, it feels like, coaches, players, whatever. And you threw in the rain and the snow. So I'll give you one of my 2 client plays that are up right now. I took the first quarter under. It's 9.5. I mean, look, these 2 teams have so many people gone offensively and little tiny pieces gone defensively. I trust Cincinnati's defense in this situation, only losing a corner. I sort of trust Louisville's defense a little bit. So I took the under, hoping that the rain and the snow are still there, and that it tapers off a little bit later on. But one of my 2 client plays right now is the first quarter under. It's a small play. It's only a unit play, but first quarter under 9.5 in this game, hoping that the weather continues. And there's just this acclimation period with so many guys gone on both sides of the ball.
Great breakdown, Matt. And to your point here, with so many people hitting the transfer portal, coaches as well, I mean, is this bowl season for you any different than bowl seasons in the past, just trying to keep up with everything?
No, but it's the reason why, if people bought, because my bowl package is discounted on sportsmemo.com, it's why people haven't seen very many. I feel like there's 2 schools of thought, Drew. There's the people who jump on the numbers early and try and predict who's not going to play, try and predict what's going to happen. And then there's people like me who sit there and say, all right, I'm willing to let go the worst number to not play a game because I need all the maximum amount of information that I could possibly get. We're still seeing people opt out, and we're still seeing suspensions and coaching changes and all this stuff. That's why my plays for tomorrow probably won't be up until tomorrow if I play anything. That's the other thing. I don't play every bowl game.
No. I mean, unless you're full blown degenerate wanting to get down on every game, yeah, don't necessarily recommend that. All right, last thing here: Louisville, their head coach Scatterfield leaves to Cincinnati. How big of a part of the handicap is that? And to you, and do you think there's an advantage either way? And also, does it surprise you he's leaving an ACC Louisville team going to AAC, although heading to the Big 12? Is this something like we should look out for? Maybe some of these Big 12 teams getting more, being able to pick from conferences like the ACC.
Nah, I don't think so necessarily. And he already said he's staying away. Like, he's not doing anything on either side. So he's going to be fair here and he's not going to go to Cincinnati and tell all the secrets for Louisville. So he's staying out. It's more the coordinators being gone too from both sides. Like, that's the crazy part here, is that literally you're going to have new coaching staffs and a bunch of players opting out and injured. So that kind of makes this game fascinating. I'm sure there's a full game angle here somewhere, but I'm going to isolate the beginning and kind of hope for a really slow start.
All right, next game up, 209-210, BYU SMU, 64 being the total, -3.5, -4. That's Southern Methodist, that's SMU. Dream Style Stadium, Albuquerque, New Mexico, the New Mexico Bowl, 7:30 Eastern, 4:30 Pacific, BYU and SMU here, Matt.
Really cold in this game. That's the weather for this one. So here's the interesting. We'll start with the easy one. SMU, the only opt-out they have is their number one wide receiver, Rashee Rice, 96 receptions, 1,355 yards, and 10 touchdowns. They'll be able to be fine. SMU has plenty of other, but that's the only guy. So that tells me that for the most part, SMU really is excited for this game. Their defense is a bit of an issue. BYU has seen two guys enter the transfer portal, including their second leading tackler, Keenan Peely. Injury-wise, one of their wide receivers, Hill, 36 catches on the season, not going to play. It looks like, if you read the quotes, Jaron Hall's not going to play in this game, and his backup quarterback is already in the transfer portal. So it would be the third stringer, Cade Fennegan, who used to be at Boise State. He would get the start. Other guys who are injured, linebackers Max Tooley and Peyton Wilger. And then a bunch of coaches left. They fired their defensive coordinator. The associate head coach is leaving. The defensive end / safeties coach is leaving. So BYU's in a lot of flux here. I'm going to wait. Obviously, this was on Saturday till it's a little closer. I may consider BYU's team total under. It scares me that they're even a third string quarterback in there, a bunch of injuries. They do run the ball really well. We know SMU's defense isn't very good, but this seems like a BYU team that's kind of like, how excited are we really for this bowl game? So I'm going to potentially take advantage of it, maybe look at their team total under if I think that SMU's defense can slow them down even a little bit.
211, 212 up next, guys. 3:30 Eastern, 12:30 Pacific. The Jimmy Kimmel LA Bowl, SoFi Stadium, Inglewood, California, the home of the LA Rams, and at least for now, the LA Chargers. Fresno State and Washington State, 52 being the total. Fresno State -3.5 point favorite. They've taken a lot of money over the last week, 10 days here, Matt. Fresno State, Hainer likely going to be playing their quarterback. What are you thinking here?
So this was the other my client play. I'm not going to give it out, but I'll give plenty of information here. Fresno State has only one guy in the transfer portal. His name is Cole Sanders, 32 tackles. Did not grade very well in the PFF stuff. So it's a loss, but it may not necessarily be a big loss. On the Wazoo side, you have an opt-out in Deion Henley, first-team All-Pac-12 linebacker. Transfer portal, you have the number one wide receiver in Dazon Stripling. You have Donovan Ollie, another wide receiver. You have two of the top linebackers in Francisco Mayoga and Travion Brown, and then you have Renard Bell, who's too injured to be in this game. So that's three of their top wide receivers in a highly passing offense. The defensive coordinator is gone, so the head coach is calling the defense, and they actually have had in practice a safety move over to play linebacker to be backup here. So they've got massive linebacker issues. That's not what you want to have against a team like Jake Hainer and Fresno State. There's no weather issues in this game, but as you can tell, Wazoo is not going to be anywhere close to 100% for this game.
And Washington State's offensive coordinator just took the North Texas head coaching job pretty late in the stage.
Factor, yes.
So, yeah, a lot going on there for Wazoo, and you can see why, guys, the money moving here on Fresno State. We got next game up, Saturday, December 17th, still 2 left. I have 3 left, actually. So we are jam-packed for Saturday football here. 2:13, 2:14, 5:45 Eastern, Rice and Southern Miss, Hancock Whitney Stadium in Mobile, Alabama. 45.5 being the total. We're seeing Southern Miss -6 or -6.5 point favorites, Matt.
First off, scattered showers for this one. So that's something to potentially look at as we head closer to Saturday. What's the weather going to look like? How much rain? Is it going to be heavy rain, cold rain, whatever? No news on the Southern Miss side in terms of transfers, injuries, and everything. That kind of tells you a lot about how excited they are for this game. Their defense is nasty. Their offense is atrocious because they've had quarterback issues once again. So you kind of want to focus in on their defense here. Rice, you look on that side. Quarterback, we don't know who's going to start. TJ McMahon is questionable. Their backup has been a little banged up and is not necessarily going to be available. So AJ Padgett, who is their third stringer, is getting some reps. Luke McCaffrey, the everything wide receiver for this team, there's a chance he might play in this game after missing a bunch. So Luke McCaffrey might help legitimize this offense a little bit, but at least as far as I'm concerned, I'm probably, if I play anything, going to look at Rice's team total under, and people are going to wonder why take so many team totals as opposed to game unders. This way, and this has been the strategy if you haven't watched this all year with me, is kind of just isolating the best unit in the game and just basically depending on them. I don't need to use the Southern Miss offense or the Rice defense or anything like that. The Southern Miss defense is going to be the best unit in this game, and Rice's offense potentially with a third-string quarterback. Kind of want to isolate that and just take advantage of that in the Lending Tree Bowl.
2:15 Eastern, 11:15 a.m. Pacific. That's local time. Las Vegas Bowl here, Allegiant Stadium, Las Vegas, Nevada. SEC and Pac-12, Florida Gators, Oregon State Beavers. 52.5 being the total. Oregon State -10, -10.5 point favorites. Cool to see the SEC and Pac-12 playing. Any interest in Las Vegas?
Yeah, this is you're getting Florida by name, but you're not really getting Florida. Anthony Richardson is opted out for this game. Osiris Torrance, the first-team All-SEC offensive lineman. Linebacker Ventrell Miller, the best linebacker on the team, and Justin Shorter, the wide receiver. They all opted out. There are 3, 6, 7 guys in the transfer portal, and the backup quarterback is also not available. So Jack Miller, the former Ohio State recruit, he is going to start at quarterback for Florida. This feels like one of those years. What was it, Drew? Last year, 2 years ago, when Florida played and just barely was there. This feels like another thing. Oregon State is going to be highly motivated. Only one opt-out tight end, Luke Musgrave. Transfer portal, Chance Nolan, the quarterback, went in there, but he lost his job a long time ago. The only bad thing for this team is that Rajon Wright is a very good corner. He's injured, probably won't play in this game, but I don't think it's going to matter. Normally, I'd lean to the SEC here, Drew, and I think people will blindly see this and be like, ooh, Florida +10 against the Pac-12. As I said, you're getting Florida in name, but you're not really getting Florida in talent. I feel like this is a massive no-show by Florida. Their team total is around 20.5. I might go under there. Oregon State's defense is nasty. I think Oregon State can win this game rather easily. I don't necessarily recommend teasing bowl games, so I wouldn't necessarily do that. But if you do feel like this number is too big and there was another bowl game you really liked, in theory, you could tease, although I don't recommend doing that in bowl season.
Matt, let me read off 2 records to you, or trends, and see if they scare you off of the Oregon State side. Over 61% double-digit dogs in bowl season have covered since 2008. So obviously that would point towards the Gators. And Billy Napier, 16-3-1, his last 19 as an underdog.
Yeah, but that's with him getting a full team. I mean, we've seen Florida lay down before, Drew. It's in Vegas too. These kids are going to be out in Vegas. When you go out there, you're going to see some Florida kids or some kids with the Florida logos. You're going to be like, oh, you must be the starting running back or whatever. And so I just don't think, if it was in the middle of nowhere, maybe, but I just feel like Florida's not going to show up here. I mean, you're the SEC guy. Don't you think this screams Florida letdown?
Oh, it definitely could. I think it's a volatile handicap. I think if you're going to bet Florida, sprinkle some on the money line +325, because they're going to go in there and have their mindset in it, and arguably have the more talented roster top to bottom. But at the same time, you bring up a good point. A couple years ago, I believe it was against Oklahoma, and they just got boat raced. They pretty much laid down. So Yeah, I think it can go one either way. I don't know. I bet Florida plus 10.5 and plus 320 on the money line. So just kind of letting it roll. Not a huge bet, but hey, is what it is, man. That's what makes a market. We got Saturday, December 17th, still 217, 218, Boise State, North Texas. Toyota Stadium, Frisco, Texas here. Minus 11. That's the Broncos. Boise State there. 59.5 being the total. North Texas, the Mean Green. Kind of surprising firing of Seth Luttrell. They just hired the OC from Washington State now. I don't know. What are you thinking here? Boise State, North Texas.
Yeah, the players weren't thrilled with the firing, and I think it's interesting though. At least on the positive side, Austin Oon, who's like 57 years old,
Yeah.
said he's declaring for the draft after the game. He's going to play in the game, and I think that's a little motivation factor there. But man, I needed him to do a little bit more in that Conference USA Championship game, and he was awful. Now I know this is a team that's a run-based team that just kind of uses the throw to keep people off the pass, but man, this is ridiculous. And then you got Boise State. Boise State for the most part is intact. I'm guessing they're going to be excited for this game. I think the only factor that kind of helps North Texas is that it's in Frisco, Texas. But Boise State's the way better team, and I think the line kind of shows you that.
You bring up Austin Noon, I guess declaring for the NFL draft after. Do you think he has a shot at making a roster or maybe CFL and anything like that? Or
No, he's 29. I mean, he may make a roster, but at 29, he's not going. He better start right away because no team's drafting a 29-year-old and then just kind of waiting and letting him develop.
Yeah, I just don't even know if he's like good enough. Like hearing him say like, "Oh, I declared for the NFL." It's like, I'm declaring for the NFL draft, like
Exactly.
I don't know. All right, next game up, that is the Saturday games. 5 of them, I believe, a bunch of them. So then the Sunday NFL. Now we got Monday, December 19th. Breaking it down here with Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com. Connecticut and Marshall, 2:30 Eastern, 219, 220, the rotation number. Brooks Stadium, Conway, South Carolina. 41 being the total, minus 10. That's the Thundering Herd as the home team. But I believe this is where Coastal Carolina plays their home games. UConn and Marshall here, Matt.
I think this all depends on Marshall's motivation. If they want to be there, they should win this game rather easily. Between LeBourne and Alley as their running backs, they're just – UConn's a great story, Drew, and for the most part, they're intact. Nathan Carter, the third leading rusher on the team's in the transfer portal. They may get a couple wide receivers back, but if Marshall wants to be there, they should win this game rather easily. I'll tell you this, that at least on DraftKings, where I get most of my team totals, this is not out yet. I'll be very interested to see what the UConn number is. I just think it's a great story. I think they'll be highly motivated, but Marshall's defense is top notch. I'm hoping for like a 14.5. Maybe like a 15.5, maybe, or 17.5 if I'm lucky. I don't think it's going to get that high. UConn, great story, but if Marshall wants to be there, they should smash UConn in this game.
Weird to see UConn in a bowl game. Rice as well. We're getting some new blood here in bowl season. 3:30 Eastern, Tuesday, December 20th. The Potato Bowl, heading to the blue turf, Albertson Stadium, Boise, Idaho, where Boise State plays their home games. Eastern Michigan, San Jose State. We are seeing San Jose State minus 3.5 point favorites, 54 being the total. Eastern Michigan, San Jose State, Matt.
Well, the best part is I got no transfer portal news, no injury news on either of these two teams. So you're going to get a highly motivated effort. Now, down the stretch, San Jose State was a money burner, at least in terms of covering. They struggled to cover. But what do we always talk about, Drew, when we have Eastern Michigan games? Every game is a one-score game. And Chris Creighton is like unbeatable against the spread as an underdog. It feels like every game, it's like, they're like a 10-point underdog, and somehow they have the ball down 7 or 8 every single time. So lean would be to Eastern Michigan here. I actually kind of like the over, Drew. Once again, it's a little far to kind of say, ooh, this is what the weather's going to be, so it kind of changes my handicap. I'm going to wait until a little bit closer to lock it in just to make sure there is no weird weather or it's not ridiculously cold because, as you said, it is Boise, Idaho. But I would kind of lean to the over here, Drew. I think you get two motivated teams. San Jose State's defense is solid. Eastern Michigan's defense, not as solid. So I think Siobhan Cordero should be able to move that offense up and down the field a little bit. But as I said, Eastern Michigan's very good as an underdog, and they'll be motivated to be there.
He's Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com. 2 games left here, guys. Check him out. He's 102-62 in college football, having a great season. The most profitable handicapper in college football on sportsmemo.com. Also the most profitable the last 3 years. His bowl package is discounted, so check him out. Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com, at MidMajorMatt on Twitter as well. Next game up, heading to South Florida. Matt, this is a game I think I'm going to attend in person here, 7:30 Eastern, 224. The Boca Raton Bowl, FAU Stadium, where FAU plays their home games. Toledo and Liberty, -5. That's Toledo. They've taken money, 4-point move from the opener of -1, 54 being the total. So, of course, Hugh Freeze taking the Auburn job. Liberty, what's going on there? And if you have to give a side for somebody going to the game, which side would you point them towards?
So, I mean, both sides have quarterback questions, although I'm guessing Daquan Finn is gonna start for Toledo once again. He was good enough against Ohio, even though he was dealing with some hamstring injuries and things like that. And then on the Liberty side, in terms of the transfer portal, a linebacker, Ahmad Walker, 64 tackles, a wide receiver, Javion Lofton, 10 catches. Their head coach is going to be Josh Aldridge, who's been on the staff a while. And my Liberty guy tells me that the kids really liked him. They wanted him to be the new head coach of the team. Jamie Chadwell, of course, taking over there. And, of course, the question mark for Liberty is who's going to be the quarterback. We've seen 3 different quarterbacks so far this season. I believe all 3 actually played in that last game against New Mexico State. Terrible effort by the team, but I'll excuse it a little because that's when the Hugh Freeze news started to come out a little bit. Obviously, Boca Raton, Florida, Drew, once we get closer, the weather becomes potentially a factor, wind, rain, that sort of stuff. So that, look, it's 5 days away and the weathermen can't get the next day right. So I don't necessarily want to be like, oh, I can't make a play. Because as I look right here, it says scattered thunderstorms. But Drew, that's the weather for like every day in Florida. So I kind of like Liberty. I think there's a little bit of value in Liberty. I'm going to make sure to talk to my Liberty guy before when we get closer to see if anything, how practice has been. Does this team want to be there? He said when they got this bowl assignment, he's like, yeah, they want to be there. So I think there's some value potentially with Liberty in this one, but I'm going to wait to lock it in a little closer to make sure the weather's what I want and that my Liberty guy says like, hey, they've been enjoying themselves down in Florida.
All right, you got a Liberty guy here. What about Liberty? Because they're not a team that I've really bet a bunch, Matt. Offensive and defensive lines, are they strong up front or not so much?
Well, there was one defensive lineman that they thought was going to opt out to go to the draft. He's already said he's playing in the game. So as I said, when you see guys with potential futures stay at school and want to play in a game, it tells me maybe that's what's going on around the school. So I'm kind of happy about that. Liberty's offensive line, I think, is pretty strong too. I just think, I think Toledo probably wins this game, but at 5, or if it goes higher, I think I like Liberty at that number. But once again, a couple of things I still want to see. That's the one problem, Drew, with doing this podcast now, 5 days later, is that there's a lot of things that could change with regard to opt-outs and things like that. But right now, I'm leaning Liberty. I haven't locked it in yet.
All right, last game here, guys, for this section. We'll be back next week with the kind of next slot of games in bowl season, every game on the board. Please smash that like button if you're liking the content, and please feel free to reply below. Any questions, we'll answer them on the next episode. We got South Alabama, Western Kentucky here. Good matchup, Matt. 225, 226, 9 o'clock Eastern on Wednesday. Singled out game here for Wednesday. -4, 56 being the total. Likely a lot of tickets written. What are we thinking? USA, WKU.
Well, so this is where betting early in this game, got you some value potentially because when this game came out, Austin Reed was leaving Western Kentucky. The thing went up to 8, and now Austin Reed has said he's coming back and he's starting in the game, and the number's back down to 4.5. So this is why, Drew, I feel like I can't react as much as everybody else does. Now, if you got Western Kentucky +8, you're feeling really good because obviously it's at 4.5 now. But if you got South Alabama -8, you're now looking to hedge a little bit, which is not, I don't hedge my games. And the couple concerns for Western Kentucky, Austin Reed is coming back, so that's good. Joshua Simon, their tight end, at 18 catches as the season went along. He's in the transfer portal. 2 starting offensive linemen are in the transfer portal, which is not good against South Alabama, who's got a really good defense. I like South Alabama's offense. To me, Drew, this feels like it's an over or nothing here. With Reed back, there's been very few offenses that have slowed them down. Western Kentucky is Western Kentucky's offense is really good. Their defense is a little bit shaky. To me, the only way to play this game is an over. But at 56, I'm not that scared right now, considering Reed's coming back, and he's got all his offensive weapons outside of Joshua Simon at tight end. So right now on the 15th, I'm looking at the over, but that's also could change 6 days later.
Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com, at MidMajorMatt on Twitter. 102-62 this year in college football. Most profitable Sports Memo handicapper in college football. Also the most profitable over the last 3 years. Check out his bowl game special, discounted right now. Matt, any closing thoughts, final thoughts before we shut it down? And is your best bet first quarter under 9.5, Cincinnati and Louisville?
It's one of my two only client plays for now. So yeah, I guess so. It's a small bet. It's a best bet in that it's the one I'm going to release, but I made only a unit. My first quarter plays are only like a unit, only because, first quarters can be a little bit, weird and things like that. But yes, that's going to be my best bet. And really, it's just stay on top of the information. There's a bunch of people who are doing a great job of putting out the transfer portal stuff and the opt-out stuff. Definitely read the quotes, see who's excited to be where, see who's kind of like, we're here, we're ready to play. Like, those motivation is a huge factor, and sometimes it almost means more than the talent side of things. Case in point, Florida versus Oregon State.
Do you have any suggestions on who to follow, where to go for the opt-out stuff like you talked about?
Thor Nystrom does a fantastic job. He writes for Betting Pros. You can follow him on Twitter at THORKU. And if you don't follow him and you just want to follow me, I'll post some stuff. And certainly if anybody ever has any questions, I'm more than welcome to answer them at MidMajorMatt on Twitter. But Thor Nystrom's done a fantastic job.
All right. He's Matt Joseph, sportsmemo.com. Guys, thanks for tuning in. Please smash that like button. Feel free to reply below. Any questions, we'll answer them on the next episode in bowl season, coming to you next week. That's every game on the board. Episode 1 of bowl season. He's MidMajorMatt. I'm Drew Martin. Cash those tickets. We'll talk next week.